everybody. I thought I would do another video on on atheism, because I know a lot of people who subscribe to be subscribed for that particular topic, and I haven't really done one on that topic for a while. But a lot of my videos recently have been more ones that are actually critical of atheists. So for a bit of balance, I'd like to pick up the atheism topic again. And one of the things I've been doing over the last couple of years or so is sort of collecting certain phrases, certain things people have said to me, people I know, which have stuck out to me, I suppose. And these are usually for arguments for the religious position or similar. And some of them, you can address these to a certain extent in the course of a conversation, but I think some of them are worthy of an actual video, actually a bit more of an analysis. So I've collected a few from a conversation I had with a friend of mine, I think about a year or two ago. One of these points is here: you are not a scientist. That many scientists believe in God should make you pause for thought, because, simply put, they know more than you do about science. Another snippet we had was: you base your belief system on disciplines you know little about. The views of those with advanced academic knowledge of those disciplines warrant respect. And another snippet: atheism is predicated on a fidelity to science. You are not a scientist, you do not understand the intricacies of the theorem that atheism cites as obviating the divine. Without that knowledge, you cannot critically analyse the limitations of such theorem. It is wholly rational to expect the views of those who both have that knowledge and can conduct that critical analysis. And I'd like to sort of address those 3 points. They're sort of the same point, but they're worded slightly differently. The first one, you're not a scientist. The way the world is set up, most of us can't really be scientists. If we were all scientists, who would be doing everything else? Who would be driving buses? Who would be cooking food? Who would be delivering the post? Who would be doing all these things? We live in a world where not everyone could be scientists. Now, that many scientists believe in God should make me pause for thought. Well, the thing is here, who says it hasn't made me pause for thought? Who says that isn't something I've considered? We shouldn't just assume I haven't considered that. They knew more than I do about science. The important thing to remember here is, when we're talking about belief in deities, we're talking about just that. Or belief in the supernatural, let's say, in general, because some religions don't really feature deities. We're talking about just that. And if the idea is that there are scientists who believe in the supernatural, therefore that lends some sort of scientific weight to the supernatural, we need to hear that scientist actually make an argument for the supernatural. We can't just say, scientists believe in supernatural, therefore points for the supernatural. We can't say, scientists believe in God, points for God. We have to hear an argument from them. And this is the thing, with as many of these scientists that exist, and there are a few, they aren't the majority though, that's important to remember. We haven't really had a peer-reviewed argument for God, have we? Or for any God or anything supernatural yet. And if anyone should be able to present it, it should be them. It should be scientists who have a belief in God, surely the best people to present this argument. The fact that they haven't shows really not only that we are no further forward in the God debate, we have no more evidence than we had before, but if anything, it makes me raise a bit of an eyebrow. Why haven't they? These people should be able to make a good argument, and they haven't done. So this is obviously the logical fallacy known as appealing to authority. You can't just say, this person's clever, this person believes X, therefore X. We need to hear an argument from that person for X, and it should be a good argument. It should be, and the fact that person's clever should, mean that there's no excuse for it being a bad argument. It has to be a very good argument that they present. If their arguments are no better than the arguments of the layman, that if anything takes weight away from their argument. That lends credence to no X. Okay, let's look at this second sentence we had here. You base your belief system on disciplines you know little about. The views of those with advanced academic knowledge of those disciplines warrant respect. A few things here to address. Atheism isn't a belief system. There are beliefs that are atheistic in nature. Secular humanism is one. I would say nihilism by default is one, because nihilists don't believe in anything. Obviously sort of Stalinistic communism was another one. There are atheistic belief systems, but atheism itself is not a belief system. So it's not it can't be based on science if it's not it can't be a belief system based on science if it's not a belief system. Furthermore, a lot of prominent atheists, a lot of atheists in the world are not scientists. Certainly some of the more prominent ones are. People like Richard Dawkins and so on. These people are scientists, but by no means are the majority of atheists scientists or science types, because the majority of people aren't. So really, to say that atheism is the same as scientism here, which it really isn't. There are people who are both, but really, it's a misunderstanding of what atheism is to begin with. But even if we overlook that, what do we have here? Okay, the views of those with advanced academic knowledge of those disciplines warrant respect. No views should be entitled to automatic respect. Again, it's the appeal to authority. We don't just give respect to people's views because those people are clever. That's not how it works. And if anything, if these people are as clever, really they should have no problem presenting arguments for their views. They should welcome challenge to those views. I mean, Carl Sagan, certainly a very intelligent, very learned scientist, he said appeals to authority are worthless. He's on record as having said that. Or he didn't demand special respect for his views, he welcomed challenge to them. If someone won't allow you to challenge their views, really that makes me more suspicious of their views. It doesn't lend any extra weight to them, especially if they're trying to blag their way through by using their own authority. Okay, we'll have a look at this third statement again. Atheism is predicated on a fidelity to science. Again, no, it really isn't. You are not a scientist, which is true. You do not understand the intricacies of the theorem that atheism cites as obviating the divine. Without that knowledge, you cannot critically analyse the limitations of such theorem. It is wholly rational to respect the views of those who both have that knowledge and can conduct that critical analysis. So we're sort of getting the same point here, but slightly differently. Again, atheism doesn't really cite anything. Atheism is a lack of belief in God. It doesn't cite anything. It just simply means that people are not convinced that there is a God, or gods in the plural. So really, it's the job of everyone else who believes to make proof, to present proof. But then what do we have there? We had, it's not even that I'm not a scientist. Again, the person, I should add here, the person I was arguing with here wasn't a scientist either. Really, for them to make a judgment about my scientific knowledge is a little bit inappropriate, I think. I think the only person who gets to judge my knowledge of science would be someone who is a scientist. That's who could. What I would say here as well is most arguments from the religious, anything that clashes with science, it hasn't really taxed my GCSE knowledge of science much at all. These arguments, I mean, I was in an argument with a creationist a while ago. He was a thoroughly despicable person, I must say. He was very rude to me. I wasn't going to bother arguing with him at first because I thought, well, I'm not a scientist, this isn't really my area, I don't really see the point of me getting into this argument. But I found that the points he was making were so easily refutable. Even someone like me who just has a GCSE knowledge of science, that's as much qualifications in science as I have, I didn't really find his arguments that challenging. I didn't find them that difficult to deal with. I mean, obviously there were certain things I had to look up, there were certain terms that weren't familiar to me, but really, there wasn't anything that he presented that I couldn't debunk. The only difficulty was trying to get him to actually listen, which is really where the problem lies. It's not really a question of me making a better argument, or atheists in general making better arguments. It's a case of theists actually listening to them. Unfortunately, now, he's an extreme example. He was a creationist, but nonetheless, most arguments I've heard, again, haven't really taxed my knowledge of science that much, and for that reason, I think that's why I don't really consider myself out of the discussion. I do tend to. I'm not going to start making videos on science the way someone like R.N. Ra does, because obviously that's his actual area. He can go into the immense and amazing detail on these that I obviously never could. And again, the other argument it's wholly rational. The other argument, it is wholly rational to respect the views of those who both have that knowledge and can conduct that critical analysis. Well, again, there's a variety of different views. It's the ones that can make views that get respect are the ones that can make a case for themselves. Views that don't make a case for themselves aren't going to get respect. Respect has to be earned. It's not something that's given away. Really, in conclusion, intelligent theists are not proof of God. If anything, it just ups the stakes. If there are intelligent theists out there, which I certainly don't doubt, then we should be hearing much better arguments for the existence of God than we are getting. What we actually get from these very intelligent people is often very unintelligent arguments, and that to me is a glaring and quite embarrassing problem. That to me really sets off alarm bells. That's what makes it that much more obvious. It's one thing for your average Joe Schmo to not make a very good argument for God, when the best and brightest of the believers can't make a good argument. That's what tells you that this isn't really a position that can hold water. This position is basically indefensible. So I hope that's been of interest to some of you. If you'd like to post some comments if you have any, and let me know what you think. Goodbye.